Guys who have rejected someone, what's the worst way someone has taken it? Story number 1. Lying to me that she had become pregnant and intended to keep the kid. We had always practiced safe sex, but condoms have a non-zero failure rate, and there is no good way to tell someone who says they're pregnant that they're wrong, so I took her at her word. After 3 weeks of her stalling on showing me any kind of proof beyond her word, she told me it wasn't going to be a problem. But I was beside myself with stress until then. Meanwhile, I'm figuring out if I need to lawyer up. I take responsibility for myself, so being a deadbeat wasn't an option. But child support was going to throw a huge wrench into my financial plans. I was in the middle of moving to a new city as well. All in all, it sucked. Near as I can tell, her goal was to inflict stress and pain. She succeeded. Story number 2. Dated a girl from work. After a few dates, I didn't see it going much further, ended it. Girl pretty much spread around we f***ed at work. We didn't. That single-handedly cost me any kind of promotion or horizontal move off what I was doing. So I ended up changing jobs about 12 months later, after every application for promotion was given to someone else, despite myself having a lot more experience, know-how with what we did. Prior to that, I was being moved around from project to project. After, I just went back to permanent nights. Said girl went on to get pregnant about 6 months later by someone else from work. Story number 3. My ex-wife started acting real shady, sneaking out of the house to make phone calls, hiding incoming calls, and not telling who was calling in the middle of date night, even though I asked nicely. She was also a mean drunk and had started drinking to excess every night. Then the physical violence started, throwing shit at my head, including a large rock, kicking and punching when she got angry. This is where I drew the line. One night, she went off the rails again in front of her small children, and I just knew that I could no longer live like that. I had just returned home from a week-long business trip and hadn't unpacked my bags yet. So I grabbed those, took one last look at my nice home and my family, and left. As I walked out, I knew full well that all of the things I didn't grab were probably gone for good. But I needed to be as well, or I would either end up in jail or dead. She blew my phone up. For the next couple of weeks, at least 60 text messages a day on the work cell, all hate-filled and incredibly vile. I tried to call her a couple of times when off of work, to talk about how we could best separate our finances and things and try to move on amicably, but she would just scream and accuse me of cheating because that was the only logical reason why I had left. Cheaters all do this. The last time we talked before the divorce, she threatened to file a false police report for harming her 4-year-old son. She didn't specify whether the allegation would be physical or sexual in nature. That didn't matter to me. Neither happened, and either one would end my career and my freedom. I cut off all contact. I tried to get her served with divorce papers only to learn from the process server she had abandoned the home. I went to survey the damage to find almost all of my clothes had been bleached, along with our new living room set. The new dining room table and chairs had been gouged, weeks' worth of trash and raw food had been left out, the refrigerator had been turned off, leaving hundreds of dollars of food to rot. The whole place smelled like death. She had also taken all of the electronics, probably to hawk. My passport with stamps in it from around the world, and the painting I had inherited from my beloved grandfather, who had passed away. She knew this would hurt me the most. All said and done, $7,000 in property damage and another $1,500 in stolen property. I filed a police report for insurance reasons and also for a restraining order. Because my ex had obviously gone batshit and was capable of anything, the police of course didn't give two shits, not surprisingly, because vagina. Story number 4. I've got one in middle and elementary school. This weird girl took a liking to me, followed me around at recess, and wanted me to marry her when I grew up. If I wanted a recess to myself, I'd have to outrun her and lose her. Kept me in good shape. Fast forward to high school. I landed in the same film arts class as her. I'd often be out filming interviews and short films around the school, but when I was in the editing room, there she'd be. ogling me from across the room, inching her chair closer and closer, and complimenting me on virtually everything: my hair, clothes, jewelry, etc. I was a socially awkward teenager, and I didn't explicitly tell her no as soon as I should have. She reached out to me on Facebook a few times, asking if I'd consider dating her. And that's when I said, I have no doubt you'll find the one, but it is not me. I'm pretty sure she started stalking me after that. It all started when I was biking to school one day and saw her leaning up against a telephone pole at the end of my street, staring at me as if she was expecting me. She lives quite far away from me. I used to live on her street in elementary school, so she must have followed me home, then gotten up at the crack of dawn and figured out when I'd be leaving for school. This happened a few times. Fast forward to present day, she seems to have figured out what routes I take home from work. Sometimes I'll be biking to work or home from work, and she'll be standing at an intersection again, staring at me as if she's expecting I'm going to come this way. She messaged me again a few weeks ago, asking if I'd date her, and I gave her a very clear rejection. Hopefully this time it sticks. I'm just really glad she doesn't know where I live. Story number 5. I once went on an internet double date. My friend had been internet dating this woman for a while and needed a driver to go meet her for the first time to help convince me to drive. They arranged for one of her friends to come with. When we got to the meetup spot a few cities over, the friend wasn't there, stuck at work, so I was forced to play third wheel, watching my friend and his girlfriend profess their love and make out. Needless to say, when friend finally showed up, I was overjoyed. She misinterpreted my "thank God, someone to talk to" reaction for "oh my God, love at first sight" reaction. She got way intense way quick, so I eventually let her down as easily as I could. For months afterwards, I get multiple emails and phone calls a day, with the craziest example being an email with our names together forever. "I love you" typed out once for every day since we'd met. She also apparently went to my work once, but luckily I wasn't there at the time. I was on the verge of calling the cops after that stunt. Eventually, my complete lack of responses to her communication, and after blocking several of her email addresses, it tapered off, but I'd still get random phone calls and emails from her, even years after this all happened. Story number 6. I dated a girl for a week when I realized she just wasn't my type and I wasn't hers, so I told her we would go our ways. Her way, however, was to stalk me for 3 years. Because we were meant to be together for life. Highlights were making fake internet accounts of other girls I dated in those 3 years and knowing frightening much about me and these girls while writing me, impersonating them, calling every day. When I changed numbers, she called every other person in my life she had the number of, trying to date people I know in my life, making weird collages of me and her on Facebook, making up fake stories of her and me, and many more. Thank God it became less and less after long and exhausting talks I had with her to make her stop on and on again. Didn't hear from her since 2015.